Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Odd Ones. Today we are going to start covering how to raise a healthy gamer. I've messed that name up every single time.
I think we tried to overcomplicate it because I don't even really know why.
Mhm. I guess we wanted it to sound better than it did.
You know why? Actually, it is because oh my gosh, it's not in here. It is how to raise a healthy gamer, and then there's a bunch of subtext below it. So that's why.
That makes sense. By the way, I hope you guys enjoyed your holidays and your New Year's
Festivities.
and all that good stuff because we just kept it simple. We kept it nice and simple.
Or if you don't celebrate, I hope you enjoyed your regular days.
Yeah. Also, I hope you enjoy our new camera angles that we have.
Yeah. Somebody dropped their phone in the toilet. So we had to get a new camera. So maybe the quality will be a little bit different on one of them.
Yep.
And if you haven't already, be sure you hit that like, follow, subscribe, and the bell.
Yep.
I still haven't checked that out.
And if you stick around to the end, we might have some announcements for this upcoming year on some projects that we are going to be doing.
Do you want to know what my motto is for this year? Because I don't believe in New Year's resolutions because I try to make resolutions all the time. But my grandma and I were talking about it, and I'm like, listen, still alive in 25.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I dig it. So,
All right, let's jump into it. Larry's got some notes for us, and we're just going to go over them one piece at a time, just like
uh,
Cash built his Cadillac. That's one piece at a time.
oh, okay.
That's my
Or
father's for sure.
or there's the anime One Piece,
Yeah,
which I haven't watched enough of, but
like
um
1,000 episodes. We're probably never going to watch that. So,
so there are I put down some bullet points, but I think the first thing they kind of go into is talking about when a couple reaches out or somebody parents reach out and they say, is my child I think my child might be addicted to video games, and they kind of break down what addiction looks like.
hold on. Sorry about that. My curtain fell onto my camera.
Because somebody tried to be fancy and make a
Keep the
curtain.
dogs
Then
out.
I did. I did. Dogs, children, light, all of it. Sound. One day we'll have a studio, and then you guys will never have to see these awkward cuts or not the cuts that we leave in.
Yeah.
Or if you want us to keep them, we will. So talking about addiction, and I think my child is addicted to video games and what that actually means. The way that I kind of understood the author to say it is like, if you think your child's addicted, they're probably
Yeah.
addicted.
Yeah, things that he covered in that chapter that make it hard, not only for this, but also for other types of addictions, including the YouTube safe word corn. Um, these things aren't really considered addictions per se because they're not, and I don't know what I'm allowed to say, but they're not uh,
Make a word that sounds like.
chemical things that you put inside of your body per se.
Mhm.
So like, well, gambling too. I mean, it's
Yeah.
kind of weird
It's
because,
your perception on the word
well,
addiction, right?
I'm speaking on like he was talking about in there, the scientific term, uh, addiction is a very tricky thing because scientists are still arguing over, well, is it just the chemicals that you put inside of your body, like external chemicals that you put inside of your body, or is it, the dopamine that is produced from other stimulus, including corn, video games, gambling, things like that. So to me,
And I guess it wouldn't even, sorry to interrupt.
go ahead.
I guess it wouldn't even be like chemicals because the green grass is not a chemical. So
That was just my term. External,
input.
yeah, sources that aren't things that normally wouldn't be considered those things. So
We have an iPad.
yeah,
I'm very excited about that because we have a new setup. Again, yay, toilet phones.
I have never seen anybody ever type only with their thumb like
Because I
that.
was trying not to be super like, excuse me. We're at the dinner table right now.
Yeah,
I don't want to be rude. So, addiction, the fact or condition of being addicted to a particular substance, thing, or activity.
yeah.
So,
But what he was saying in the book was like certain scientists say that addiction is only these external sources, chemical sources, or you know, what I'm trying to, y'all know what
yeah.
I'm trying to say. Where other scientists argue that point, which is what I think you and I and that the doctor who wrote this book all agree on, which is,
I want to meet the scientist who said no.
yeah, no. My
Yeah.
headache. What's his deal?
Hey, if you're that scientist, drop a comment below. Help me understand why you think it has to be an external going internal for it to be an addiction.
I mean, all of this is external stuff. I mean, playing video games, watching porn, eating food, gambling, all these are
Sure.
external things coming into your mind to drop dopamine, which, encourages you to do it more, you know?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's all I had to say about that part.
At first, I thought you were talking about like lower your dopamine. I was like, is that no?
Well, it does make it where you, and he talks more about this later, but it does make it where it's harder to feel things because your dopamine it is so like your receptors are so used to the amount of dopamine that it's getting that it's like you have to just pump it full and like more and more dopamine essentially. And he talks about it, I think, in this chapter where it's like if you I won't use these examples because I want to save them, but it's like if you watch Corn, the first time you
Mhm.
watch it, it's like, wow, this is amazing. Like I want to do this more. Where it's like later on, if you watch it multiple times a day or whatever the case is, you get to the point where it's like, this isn't really doing anything
Been
for
there,
me.
saw that.
So now you have to watch more extreme stuff to get that same dopamine reaction.
It's funny that you mentioned, I'm not funny or ironic, really. Since you mentioned that, I saw a video today where it was, I'm pretty sure it was a satire account. It doesn't matter. She was talking about, finding a man who doesn't watch that. And I think the statistic that she put up there, and I don't know what that is, we can drop uh, I don't know what the camera angles allow me to do, but I could put it here
You can
or
put
I
it
could put it
anywhere
here.
now. You have that whole backdrop behind you
I'm
so
gonna
you
put
can
it
see.
here. You gotta put a rainbow between it. But the percentage of men who do not watch corn. And the fact that when men do that, that it lowers their um ability to enjoy being with their person, right? It creates a need for more for them to be engaged with the person they're with. And I'd never really thought about it that way. And I guess the same, and we'll transition into that because I could go on a whole tangent there. But with video games, if you think about the kids, any kids who are playing video games and they're like you grew up enough in the era where you would go out and hang out with your friends and you would go do stupid things and if you saw somebody you would engage with them, where everybody's now looking at their phone or playing a video game. So then when they engage with somebody else, unless there's something big and exciting going on, let's go do this, let's go do that, then it's not really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess in this, and by the way, this book is definitely things that we're going to be reading. Like Lara hasn't read this yet, so this is definitely stuff that
Chapter one I did.
we're gonna. Huh?
Chapter one I did.
Oh yeah, that we're definitely going to be utilizing with our children because all of our children are addicted to electronics in one way or another. So we're gonna 2025. This is our goal, not resolution. This is our goal to start weaning them off of it because our kids are becoming of age. One of them is 16. One of them's about to be 15 in another month. They need to be getting used to the real world, getting used to having jobs and things like that, not focused on electronics and other things like that. So
And we could do like an update along the way, like,
yeah,
hey, this is what we're doing, just quick hits,
yep, absolutely.
shorts, even. Okay.
But I think right now in chapter one, what we should be considering is and helping our viewers out with is what does the addiction look like? So, they might be looking at it as, oh, my kid, he comes home, he plays for 4 hours straight, he comes out and eats dinner with us. That's all I really care about. It's no big deal. Where somebody else, they might look at that and be like, oh my goodness, like that's, most of their school day. Like after they get out of school, that's most of their day. And before they know it, they have to go to bed. So we're not spending any time with them really. So that, even 1 hour a day is addiction. So what's that happy medium to you?
Oh, that's hard. Hmm. Well, I know that I
Oh,
in
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interject. Um, as I was saying that, this kind of flashed in my mind. Now, if your child is disabled, Um, maybe this is their way of feeling normal, playing video
or
games, interacting with
socializing.
people,
Yeah.
and socializing. There's nothing wrong with that. Like I just watched a short where this kid well, not kid, he was, I think, in his 30s whenever he passed away, and he had muscular dystrophy, and so he was wheelchair bound for years of his life.
Mm,
And to his parents, he seemed like he was addicted to video games and really, didn't get out of his room very often. All this different stuff. He's playing World of Warcraft a lot. But then whenever he passed away, all of his friends came to the funeral. Well, actually, they started writing out to his parents and saying, "Wow, what a wonderful kid he was! What a wonderful person! He meant so much to me in this life." And it's heartbreaking that he left. And we had all these experiences, real relationships with him, and then they had a whole wow funeral for him, and like this whole
mm.
wow experience. Yeah. So if you're disabled, and this is your escape from the hard reality that you have. This is not directed towards you. That's a totally different circumstance for you.
Something we'll see if I remember. I can go back and watch this. I think and we'll put a pin in this. Um, the other side of that too, like absolutely, if you can't get out there and physically interact in the ways that you want, I think that there now with the ability to connect with people virtually, it allows you to have real life experiences that you would not have otherwise. And then I think about like the anime Sword Art Online,
Yeah,
they're all
sure.
able to go out. Anyway, I digress. But the whole disability thing, I think that the question becomes, well, what if you're socially disabled? If your disability isn't as much physical as it is emotional or
Yeah.
mental, is that equally as acceptable or is it inflaming the issue? But I don't think now's the time to talk about that. We're in chapter one.
Okay, for
I'd
sure.
like to I'd like to think that through, because,
I just have some real life examples. That's what I was going to say
well, go for it.
that. So I have two people that I know that both of them have. It's not Asperger's anymore. They've relabeled it, but I grew up with it being called Asperger's, and both of them, um,
I think Asperger's got just relabeled to the autism spectrum.
yeah, it's just on the autism spectrum. They're both very well-spoken people whenever they're online and whenever they get to know you. They're both very outspoken and very well articulated and all these different things. Nothing out of the normal for them. But as soon as they go out into the public eye, and now this is kind of where there is a gray area because whenever they go out in public, I mean, whenever I knew them, and now granted they were 17 or 16 and 18 whenever I knew them, and I was trying to be that mentor almost to them, at 20 something years old, but I was trying to be their mentor and say, hey, let's go order food. Let's start with that. Let's go order something from Burger King, give you the opportunity to get out there and learn how to socialize. But the gray area is, I couldn't be there all the time. We were working a seasonal job, so I couldn't be there all the time. And whenever I wasn't there, their parents made it, well, grandparents, adopted parents, I guess is what you call it, but their parents would not facilitate that at all. They wanted them, because they got disability checks, they got
Mhm.
all this other stuff. They wanted them to be in that situation. So, you know, that those things wouldn't be taken away. So there is a point where even if you're um, uh, socially disabled, you still can teach yourself in a way to overcome certain things. Now, I'm not saying go out to a huge crowd and try to socialize with everybody, but at least one-on-one with individuals, you can train yourself to become more comfortable in those interactions. Now,
I want to put a pin in that too.
yeah, you can wean yourself off of the video games as much and get a close group of friends and play D&D.
If
That,
they have if they have exposure to the awareness that they can do that.
yeah,
So, I think telling somebody you can wean yourself off, but you don't have any example.
it's almost like Munchausen or something, or like what's it where the parents like keep you down and make you feel disabled.
Oh yeah,
Like,
Munchausen's.
yeah, it's almost like that.
Yeah. Um,
Move that back up to your mouth a little bit.
sorry.
Okay. All right. So what's the next point you have there, Lynn?
Um, okay, so talking about shifting focus, um,
Oh, I never
when
answered the question. that I stated earlier, which was, what do you think is an addicted amount of time?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, that's hard, and the reason that's hard for me is I I have in past, not that I haven't done it recently, but I've definitely gotten better about it. But and like when I have anxiety or when am stressed or anything that would make someone else do some addictive behavior, I guess my addictive behavior was cleaning. And so I would come home after work and yeah, all I'd want to do is hang out with the kids, but I'd find myself cleaning and then it'd be 4 hours later and then they were all winding down and then going to bed and then we're staying up too late, yada yada. So it, also with that, 4 hours worth of cleaning versus 4 hours worth of gaming, have an experience in gaming, a match could take an hour. So matches doesn't seem like a lot, but 4 hours to me is a lot.
Yeah.
I think having a schedule, like if you're on a game where there are like benchmarks or weekly task, if you want to still do those, could be 2 hours a day except on this day, or it could be an hour a day. I think with balance, so if you spent 2 hours with family, 2 hours studying, 2 hours playing a game, that's all balanced, and that's all addiction. I was gonna say that's all addiction is balance. You
Oh,
could do you could my favorite, you could do rack as long as you want, as long as you're balancing it, not too much. And people do argue that fact that you can do drugs as long as you don't do it too much. But I don't really know, like my heart's desire would be an hour, maybe two. Um, that's a long time
yeah.
still to me.
I was gonna say at least starting out 2 hours. Specifically, it's like, okay, you got all your chores done, you came and hung out with the family for a little while, and then you already have your shower, you're ready for tomorrow, clothes are put out, everything is ready to go. Then you can sit down, play for 2 hours, and then it's bedtime.
What
Um,
about summer though?
Summertime, that is a little bit trickier because it's like with the world how it is nowadays, it's like you don't want your kids going out all the time. Um, so that one is hard. I'll have to think about that one.
Because I think that's the addiction doesn't know school time or not school time.
Yeah,
So
yeah, that's kind of the tricky part because we've worked 8 hours a day or more, so it's like,
they should be gaming all day or all morning long, but then they stay up late with us. So
yeah. So yeah, that's one that we'd have to think about a little bit more throughout this video series. But yeah, I think 2 hours a night, 1 to 2 hours a night is okay. Or if they want, don't play any video games all week, and then at the end of the week, play 8 hours. On the weekend, if you want to really just have a whole gaming day, and you're just want to beat this whole game in one day or one sitting, whatever, you know, you could do that. But it's hard because so many of the people that they watch, influencers and stuff, are streamers and people who record.
Corey Kenshin,
Yeah, and
welcome back.
they play for hours at a time, and it's like that's normal to the kids, but in reality, like they might get done playing, like that's their job. They get paid for it, and then they
Right,
get up and they're not thinking about video games for the rest of the day. You know?
right. Well, that kind of rolls into point number one. Now that we've got to circle back around to that. Uh, so let's say you decide that, all right, yeah, my child's addicted. And, while we are aware in our family that there are some physical disabilities that have impacted certain things that they can and can't do. Some of it is depression that we know happens that impacts that. Some of that is just interest. Um, don't just take it from them.
Yeah,
And so they were saying versus doing the like they call it screen time wars or whatever, where like, no, you're not going to play then or whatever. Having some kind of like limitations to it, but understand why are they doing that?
yeah,
All right, so I'm going to only allow you to game 2 hours a day, but what is it that you're getting out of it?
yeah,
And I think step one in general is like, okay, you recognize that your child has a gaming addiction. Why?
yeah,
And I think often we impose our ideas as parents of what we think is acceptable based on our personal experience. And even though we like, especially for you, since you're closer to that technological age, like you grew up with video games as by comparison to me.
Yeah, babysat
Um,
video games for sure.
so I feel like with them, it is such a integral part of their life, and even though you might have understood it more, you still don't know what it's like to be saturated in that like they do, and we don't know what their brain chemistry is like compared to ours. We
Yeah,
can only make assumptions, and the fact that they grew up with the ability to play and maybe, more than they should. And we're having a realization now or been exposed to this book now or, have concern now. Yeah, I think coming at it and understanding why they do it, we listen, we don't judge kind of thing is important.
yeah. No, and that is, I mean, just touching on a few points here. Uh, One difference between then versus now, it's like there was almost no girls playing video games whenever I was coming up, and even if they were just like, it was Sims or like things like that, and they wouldn't play.
I did love me some Sims.
They didn't play as long
Mhm.
versus guys who played hours of Super Mario or hours of Halo or whatever LAN parties, and all of us greasy boys smelling like pizza by the end of the day. Um,
Pizza.
yeah, no, put in lightly. My aunt Kathy used to come into the
Onion pizza.
yeah. My aunt Kathy used to come in. After she just let us play, like first like Fridays, she'd let us play all night. And then the next day she would come in and she's like, "Oh, okay, I gotta open some windows, turn on the fan. It smells like boy farts in here."
Oh my
Um,
goodness,
yeah,
boy farts.
yeah,
She was being polite.
yeah. But yeah, I think what was I gonna say? Oh, you'll see in this book as we continue is one point that he tries to
Are you
really
about to spoil it? Spoiler alert?
very mild spoiler,
Okay.
sorry. But one point that he tries to make throughout this whole book is this is an alliance that we're building with our children, not trying to tear everything apart, not trying to just rip everything from them. We are trying to build an alliance, understand why they're being this way, and catching it before they're in their 20s and 30s and living with us and all this different stuff. So we're trying to really understand, like you were saying, and help them understand, and then
We don't even
slowly
have a basement,
slowly wean them off. Yeah, they're gonna be hiding up in our little crawl space now.
right? Did you have another point? Okay. Um, well, that and the bulleted items here, how it's kind of outlined is understanding the appeal of gaming.
Yeah,
And not that we both don't get it, but again, particularly for them, and it is that dopamine. I think yeah, we talked about it when we kind of did the intro to the whole book,
yeah,
even though we couldn't get the name out. Um, that like Well, maybe we didn't talk about it. I don't know. We tried that a number of times. So, if we didn't mention it in the first episode, for me, one of the appeals of gaming is achievements.
yeah,
I like to collect already. I like to, especially if it's something cute, and yeah, I just want to have all of those. And so, there could be an appeal for a collector or gratification of knowing, like, oh, you did a good job.
yeah,
There's nothing like being in a team setting, like, let's say it's you and keep pushing on my glasses, they're not there. Let's say it's you and 6 of your friends or 5 of your friends playing a game, and you're trying to win the I don't know, I keep thinking about Overwatch and taking the, endpoint or whatever it is, and you come in and you do, like, the play of the game, and you save everybody, and everyone's like, "Oh, that's super cool."
yeah.
There is a chemical reaction, and if you're watching this and you haven't played video games, there's no way to well, I'm sure there's a way to explain it, but just think about that time. Maybe you found a really good sale, or maybe you like, I don't know.
Maybe you play football and you were the one that got to the touchdown, or maybe you were a what is it called? What they do somersaults and stuff.
Gymnast.
Yeah, maybe you're a gymnast and you freaking stuck that landing. It's that kind of feeling, you know.
It's so sad that I was trying to think about what I could liken it to, and I was like, dig for it, Lara, dig for it." The sale and like the find of like, "Oh my gosh, I'm really into this, and I found this collectible item," or,
I found
you
a
know
dollar on the ground. That's a good representation. Everybody knows how that feels. You find a nice dollar or
Not a
quarter
dollar anymore.
or a
How much did
quarter.
you find at the ravines?
Oh, I felt like $200.
Unreal.
Yeah,
Anyway, if that was your $200, sorry, but it went to a good cause. So yeah, just being able to understand, because then if you understand why, you can strategize. How do you overcome? Yeah, there's this book, Start with Why. And I think it's really meant more for business, but it very much answers a lot more things than that.
yeah,
Why do you do what you do? And it's also important, I think, too, for your children to understand their why. Um, yeah, I think about, let's say you have a corn addiction, right? And you are watching it and you're like, oh, well, this is something that I do. I'm not really sure why I do it, but I do it. Well, somewhere there's a root. Or for me, the cleaning, oh, I'm just cleaning to clean. Well, you've been doing it for 4 hours now. Well, I'm doing it because I have something inside of me that I'm trying to deal with externally. And if all of this looks good, then all of this feels good. So, and kids, I can't remember being that introspective at 14, 15,
mhm.
19, 20, whatever. So,
Yeah. I wasn't either. One thing though,
I think our kids though are, sorry to interrupt, but I think our kids are a little bit different in some ways.
yeah,
Not that they aren't still kids, well, they're teens, not that they're not still teens, but I do think that they are self-aware or in connection with those feelings even though they may not know what to do with them.
yeah, that's true. Speaking of achievements, yeah, I could see where, I mean, there's a lot of people that are really addicted to being a completionist, getting every single achievement, all this different stuff. And I got pretty lucky because I had a cousin that he and I would always play very similar games, if not the same games. And he would always try to get all of the achievements or as many as possible. Don't worry, the camera's on me. Don't,
Okay.
I'm just telling you right now. But anyway, he would try to complete all the achievements and get more achievements. And at first, it was even. I would play a game more than he would, or he would play more than me. And then before long, he like tripled my achievement points on Xbox. And I was like, okay, achievements don't matter. I'm not gonna go out like if there's one that I want or if it comes with something, then sure I'll go ahead and try to get those. But I'm not gonna get into that. But I could definitely see where somebody like you were talking about could get addicted to those kind of achievements. Like, oh shoot, I freaking did the no scope 360 whatever no scope whatever that there it is. Um, but the difference between where I grew up and and I was like the first generation that this was happening to on the console, which is where a lot of people are playing at the time. Now a lot of people are playing PC, but DLCs. DLCs.
Oh my gosh.
Skyrim was the first one that came out with DLCs, and it was like this golden horse mount or whatever, and like it had chainmail that was gold, and that was very first DLC, as far as I know. There may have been other ones, but that's the first one. And then Halo put some out. They were free at first, but then you'd start paying for it. And
I never even thought about the DLC, just sprinkling in a little bit of,
yeah,
oh, you like this? Keep liking it.
yeah.
That's wow.
Yeah,
That's
and that's where
actually really
the double
scary.
drug comes from. It's like, oh shoot, I need more of Halo,
Oh my
but they're
gosh.
not putting out a new game for another year. How can I get more Halo? Oh, DLC, I bought all the packs. And
My whole
now,
mind just went,
but now that's what Fortnite is completely based off of. Instead of
oh, my,
selling
we hear it all the time.
the whole game for $60, they just sell the DLC. That's all they do. There's no story mode, there's no anything like that. They're just constantly selling DLCs and there's new packs coming out every month. And that's where the addiction is. It's not the gameplay, there is that aspect to it, but it's more, oh, I got the new Spider-Man skin. Oh wait, the newer Spider-Man skin just came out, so now I need to get that. That's where how I always talk about, the gaming, I mean not the gaming market, the toy market doesn't know what to sell kids anymore. It's because the Fortnite and other games like that has discovered that niche. So it's like, okay, what do kids like? They're like Nikes, here's a Nike pickaxe. Buy that for friggin' $3. You like Spider-Man? Oh, don't worry, we have Spider-Man skins that come out every month. Oh,
The
you like
DLC though, like
yeah,
I didn't even think about that ever.
yeah. And I mean, that's the same thing with Rock Band. It was like that was my addiction back then. As far as
Oh, I would definitely have been addicted to
yeah,
that.
I mean, I had so many freaking songs in there that I mean, I played them all the time. All the ones that I got, I played all the time. But yeah. So that's I think where the real problem started. They would give you this is no news for anybody that plays video games or keeps in touch with minor gaming news. We have been complaining complaining to the internet for years that um, they give half-baked games, give you DLC, and then sprinkle in little things towards the end of the game life. So that's how they keep you sucked in, and
Yeah,
then you buy the next game.
that's crazy.
Yep.
All right, now that my mind has been blown about the DLC thing, it actually, again, bullet points here, the importance of connections. So just remembering that this is about a positive experience to your point. And he did kind of lay the foundation for that. Again, I'm going chapter by chapter because, that's uh,
Yeah.
for me, I like marinating, if you
Yeah.
will, on
For
it.
sure.
And then I think when you ask them why, being able to understand those underlying issues, um, I know for fact that will do me for example, because I really I don't want any teen, child, kid, whether it's yours, ours, whatever, to feel like in sitting here listening to this that we're trying to out anybody. Like if you are out there and you're playing a video game and it is because you're depressed and now we're trying to be your teammate and we come in here and talk about you specifically.
Mhm.
I don't think that's fair. But we're going to talk about us because we have understanding of it. So I did not recognize that I had an addiction to a video game until after the fact. Like I knew I really liked it, but I didn't know until we started talking about it um, early on. And I was playing Overwatch or World of Warcraft and clearly did not. I mean, looking back, like, oh, those are cute, but I don't really care about it. Yeah, I don't have anything to show for it. Yeah, cool memories with friends who I don't ever talk to anymore.
Yeah.
Though occasionally, sometimes I try to call somebody. Aaron's cardiologist, and I guess I have his name is Dr. Moon, and somebody's handle was Moon, and so I accidentally text or call at least once a year
Oh.
somebody from the game channel or the gameplay. Anyway,
Well,
um,
speaking of that, I mean, at least you had memories. There's certain aspects, like whenever I was really into WoW,
mhm.
we would so whenever I can't ever remember, but whenever Illidan came back,
Mhm,
not the second expansion, but the later on. Anyway, um started out me and my friend, we played the crap out of it. He would go a little bit further than I because at the time I was working, and then whenever I quit working, he and I would just sit there and play that no life it. And whenever the raids were just starting to trickle out, we would play those a little bit, but then we'd go back to the main hub place where they had a lot of mini things that you could do. And one of them was like going down into the sewer, and then there was a lot of PvP stuff down there. And if you PvP enough, you'll get these little tokens and you'll get a rat guy. And I would
mhm,
ride around on that rat thing all the time. I loved it. That was a cool memory. I liked that. I enjoyed it. It didn't take too long for me to get that. But in that, you have a chance for people to drop this little thing that was a portal if you collect enough of them that would send you to this little island, and you beat this guy and you have an opportunity to like fish or something where you get
uh-huh.
a catfish mount. That one was where I no-lifed. Literally for 7 days straight, I did that. And uh, the guy that I was playing with, who literally for at the time I was probably 25 for, so he was the same age as I was. So for 25 years, he never had a job, he never had any obligations, anything like that. So he no-lifed this game. Like he loved this game, he loved all video games. And I no-lifed this catfish mount more than he did. Like literally, he's like, all right, I give up on this. I don't really feel like getting this thing.
I can see your stubborn self
And
just being
I
like,
sat
"Nope,
there
nope, nope,
yeah, I mean,
nope."
literally, I would just sit there by myself, not talking to anybody, just sitting there playing that. So it's like, and I got it, and I was like, okay, cool. I get to go swim around in an ocean, which is like 1% of the time I ever went into the water. So
Right, right.
it's a little bit like a waste of stuff or a waste of time. So again, at least you had memories that you built with friends. I was sitting there just no lifing,
Yeah.
like not typing anybody. I refused to talk to anybody that I didn't know, and WoW specifically. Um, so yeah.
I think that makes sense though, because you like did your own thing growing up.
Yeah.
So
And that was the part after I got that and after I was doing a couple other things and I was just like walking around the world of WoW. Um, that's whenever I was like, this is literally pointless. I continued playing games until you and I got together, but I was like, this is pointless. Like, there's no reason for me to do this. And that's kind of whenever I started recording gameplay because I was like, okay, at least somebody can see this, you know.
I think you are an anomaly. And I'm not saying that maybe you, I'm just throwing it out there. Cut it if you want to. Maybe you recording it was your way of saying, well, I can still do what I like to do, but it have a purpose,
Yeah, exactly.
giving yourself a reason to play video games. Well, now I'm playing because I'm recording. I'm not saying that's what it was, but um, even like when I think about addiction in general, um, obviously with exception, you were like drinking and then you're like, oh, I'm done with that.
Yeah,
Or, anything else that you've done.
yeah. I mean, and yeah, I mean, going back to what you were saying, it's like, yeah, that was me playing video games and recording it was just me trying to make it feel like I was being productive in some way. Um, and you know, using code words here, even reth heads
Mhm.
go and pick copper or like pick up random pieces of trash because they're like, this is what I have to do. This is me being productive. And if I don't do this, nobody else will. So
Justification.
I'm gonna be, well, maybe not for them, maybe in their mind, they're actually like,
Well, that's just
this is me
probably
being productive. But
breathing it out.
yeah, so yeah, that's kind of how I was at the time. It's like now I do it because I don't want to just sit there and play video games all day and not make some kind of content. I just enjoy making content at this time, you know.
I think, well, yes and no. I mean, I do agree with that. I do know that I've seen you, except for like when a game comes out. And I think there's nothing wrong with that. Like, if
Yeah,
that's been your interest, by all means. But there are also games that we're not even taking into consideration the phone, that you might play that you're not recording content
yeah.
that you still play. So I
I don't
think
really play any games. The only thing that I'm playing now is Pokemon TCG card game on my phone, which is like I'm getting bored with that because they only have 4 packs that you can choose from, and
the dopamine's not good.
yeah, pretty much.
um, but I've always found it very interesting that, and maybe my perception, I'm just talking it out with you. Maybe my perception has been, it has always been that you just don't understand addiction because you just, "Oh, I'm done with that," or "I'm done with that," or "I can quit that for a while." Where from an addictive standpoint, once I'm about something until something else comes along and then I'm about that. Um, but maybe it's that you just have more willpower to quit certain things. I don't know. And I think kids, like, they don't teens, I feel like they're still trying to figure out, like, what do I do with all these hormones
Yeah.
or, what do I do with all this social awkwardness? So,
And
anyway,
that thing for me, I think now that I'm thinking about it right now is um probably I just have so many interests. It's like okay, especially now, like back in the day, it was all video games and D&D and stuff. Well, especially whenever I was a teen, like them, no offense to my mom, but it's like she was preoccupied with other things at the time. So really, it was just like video games, and that's what I had unless I went to somebody else's house. So whenever I got out into the real world,
could have
it's like,
went hiking.
hmm,
Could have went hiking. Could have went
yeah, I mean, I
to
could have,
Fort.
but I was 16. Why would I do that? Like, I, I was having fun doing this. I was having all my needs
You
were
were
being
getting your
met.
dopamine
Yeah, I mean, the hiking aspect of it was being met by me wandering around Halo.
with the catfish on, no, not in
No,
Halo,
that was
but
adult. I was an adult then. I should have had better self-control then, but,
how? I think that's what we have to figure out. Like,
well, I knew
I
how
definitely
at that
interrupted.
point
I'm sorry.
I knew how at that point because before then, before I was at in that chapter of my life, um, I didn't have that PC. I didn't really have good internet, so I play games. But then I was wanting to also get healthy, so I was like gardening a little bit. I was going on runs. I got a bike later on and started going on bike rides and stuff like that. So I had the tools. I knew how. At that time, I was depressed, and that's not a good justification. And
Absolutely.
and now that I'm on the other side of that, I know if I was to go out on a walk And also before this time I was single, so I didn't feel like I needed to bring somebody with me. I just went, or like I had Juliet at the time, so I just put her in the little, you know, buggy and take her with me, and it was no big deal. But you know, in that second chapter where I was depressed and going through crap and also with somebody else, I I felt like they needed to go with me, but at the same time, um, I didn't have the motivation to go myself. So it's like, how am I going to force them to go with me?
I think it's interesting that you say, and as I'm thinking about the teens, and we're going to get on the last point, and I kind of roll into that for chapter one. But you say that you had the tools, and I'm thinking about even being in my early 20s, right?
Mhm.
So you didn't have the ability to play games. Therefore, your interest had to shift, right? Yeah, I mean, you could only play so much non-online gaming at that point.
Not really, because I liked single player games more than anything. There's only a few online games that I like, but yeah, most of them were single player games that I enjoyed. It's just I enjoyed being outside more.
Right. And so you have your interest shifted,
Mhm.
right? And I'm not sure what inspired that, but whatever that was, your interest shifted. And so you did that thing until that dopamine ran out and then you fell in depression, whatever the trigger was, right?
Yeah.
And so for you to say, I knew I had the tools, but I just didn't do it. Well, I don't think depression really works that way. I don't think especially for teens, but I'm thinking about as an adult, like, how many times I knew what the tools were to get better, but the dopamine hit from playing a video game is so much easier than going on a hike. Oh my God, now I got to get dressed. I got to pack up. Well, sorry about that. Um, I gotta get packed up. I gotta do XYZ. I mean, thinking about as an adult, what is your morning routine? Like, how do you wake up? What is it that gets you going? You know what the right thing is. Like, I know I should be going to bed earlier, but I don't. I know that if I get up and I do, have my stuff set out, and then maybe I make breakfast or I spend some time alone, or maybe not coffee. Coffee's another addictive thing, but we'll go over that another time. Um, just because you know what you should do doesn't mean that you're capable,
Mhm.
and it doesn't mean that because you're not, that you are doing something. I don't wanna say doing something wrong, but that you're wrong for that, or that somebody else should judge you any more than you saying, "Well, I went back to playing games because I was depressed." Well, should I say that you were a piece of crap for that? No, you just did what you had to at that moment to get that dopamine.
Yeah.
Maybe it wasn't reth, you know, or rack. I don't know why everything starts with a R. Um, so then look at it from a team perspective where they have no life experience,
Yeah.
and they have only been exposed to what we've exposed them to. They haven't really had a chance to explore on their own. And life is again much different than it was for us. Where, like, if I went to the store with my friend at 10, all the way up at the corner, two girls walking up there to go into a store with a man alone, that wasn't a problem. But it is now. Like, we won't let the girls go to the store. 14 and 13. And I feel like one of them could definitely kick somebody's ass.
Yeah.
Um, you decide. But I wouldn't let them walk up 2 blocks.
Yeah.
So how much exploration can they really get? Yeah, I think just, and
It-
I mean, it goes back to the bullet points, understanding the appeal, understanding the underlying issues, and what are you focused on? If you're going to go into this really trying to partner with your teen and really trying to understand somebody, you have to take your preconceived notions, and maybe it's even with yourself, right? And saying, "Oh, well, I knew what to do. I sucked at that moment." Well, maybe you didn't. Maybe you really didn't understand it. Maybe we're looking at it from a different perspective with a lot more life experience and a lot, honestly, better life experience.
yeah. Well, their whole thing is what you just said, which is a lot of what they're able to experience is reliant on us and then later on their own independency, where independency was given to children a lot earlier back in the day. Even like, whenever my mom was coming up, I mean, they were all over their little town with no supervision at all
Mhm.
because everybody else was supervising.
Right.
And nowadays it's like I would love for them to be able to go on the bike trail by themselves. But it's like that first little leg there, and I mean, this could continue on all the way down, but that first little leg there is so, riddled with people who aren't great.
I mean, I don't even not so much I feel like sometimes yes, but even if you lived in a great area, I'm just knocking this mic everywhere. Sorry. This I say this almost every time. This really needs some WD-40. Um,
I think about it every time too.
but even if it's not a great area, like it's a different world,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And so the last point, and I think that can kind of play into this part as well, is so how do you all right, my kid's addicted. We've talked about it. We understand the why. We're here for them. We're, listening. We are participating with them. And even if they don't know, kind of working through it with them. All right. So now we know we got to set some limits, right? We're going into still live in 2025. How are we going to do the best of that? Right. Um, Helping them have some independence and setting expectations and letting them be an active participant because do as I say, right, does not teach them anything.
Yeah.
I grew up with that, and I in my adulthood, well, if you didn't tell me why, and I'm a very curious person, then I would find out the hard way
Yeah.
every single time. And again, with you being the anomaly, we're like, oh, I learned from their mistakes. I don't want to do that. Um, I don't know a whole lot of people like that, and I mean, you've made your own mistakes and struggle with your own things. So each child is different, but all right, we're going to set some time limits. What do you think is acceptable?
Mhm.
And maybe their idea of acceptable, like if we brought in a panel of teens and said, how many hours a day do you feel like you should spend on your, let's just say phone?
Yeah, that's the main one.
I'd love to see screen time for I already know, and that's scary, because they have it on them all day.
Yeah,
But we didn't have phones growing up.
yeah.
Well, what's your screen time?
I mean, don't look at mine because the way I listen to my podcast and stuff like that, it's through YouTube. So it looks like I have a lot more screen time than I actually do, as far as like sitting down and watching it per se.
But it's still consuming something.
I mean, it'd be a very boring day if I didn't have something whenever I'm alone 90% of the day. You know what I mean?
But I'm not judging. We listen, we don't judge. I really do love that whole series. Have you seen that? Oh my gosh, this whole time you have no idea what I'm talking about. So it's two
It was
people.
very lame.
Okay. So it's two people who sit down and like, let's say a mother daughter, or we'll do you and I, and we both say we listen, we don't judge. And then I say, that one time that your AirPod wasn't working and I didn't say anything right away. It was because I definitely washed them in your pants and then panicked and then forgot to tell you. And so, I mean, he got new AirPods, but
Yeah.
and then that's you listening and you don't judge.
AirPod?
No, that definitely is what happened.
You never told me that.
I surely did when I got you the new AirPods. No, he doesn't remember.
No,
That's okay.
definitely never told me
Okay,
that.
well, we listen, we don't judge.
Because the
So
whole time I was like, man, my AirPod's not working. I don't know what happened to it.
you were already complaining about it, and then I pulled it out of the dryer, and I was like, "Oh crap!" And I was like, "Oh my gosh!" Well, and it still worked
I'm
because I
joking.
tested it after. It's okay. That's why it's called. That's why it's funny. So
Um,
my face, I can feel the red underneath. He got the brand spanking new. I won them. I was trying to save for him, but
that's too funny. Um,
it's supposed to be your turn then, and you say, "We listen, we don't judge," and then you admit to
I don't
something.
know if I have anything to admit to like
I'm sure somewhere in there.
that.
You're the anomaly.
Yeah, I guess so. But another thing that we're not really taking into consideration for children that were born pre-pandemic is that they had a whole year or year or 2 years, however long that lasted,
Too
where
long.
they literally were stuck inside. Like I was lucky where my job, I was an essential worker and I was able to go to work and get out of the house and, enjoy
Yes.
the fresh air essentially, where they couldn't even do that. Like everybody
Right.
was stuck inside doing school from the house and everything. Couldn't even go outside to play with the neighbors or anything. And
Oh, I'm sure that chemically changed
yeah,
their bile or the we gotta
we're
fix
getting
it.
thrown away.
I don't know. I just do not like it. Sorry, keep hitting it in the squeak.
But yeah, I think that had a huge part in, I mean, for the girls in particular, because Aaron, whenever I first met him, he was already into gaming and stuff like that. So, not to the extent he is now, but I mean, very much so. And that has things to do with other
I think there's a lot
factors.
of dynamics there.
Yeah,
And you like gaming, I think, too. And so he has had that influence from everywhere.
yeah.
Not doesn't matter what kid. Um,
Well, let's talk about this real quick while we're on the subject. This book, it might be harder to follow. This would have been harder for us to follow 2 years ago. And that's because 2 years ago, the blended family dynamic was totally different.
mhm,
They were all on a schedule where they would go to their other parent's house and be there for multiple days at a time.
mhm.
So it's hard to make something like this stick whenever
Right.
whenever they're going over to their other parent's house and they're allowed to watch anime for 12 hours
2 different worlds.
or be able to play video games for 12 hours. And then they come back here and it's like, okay, we have structure where, we're saying you can only play video games for 2 hours a day. Especially like during summer break again, we'd have to adjust then. But um, you know, so if you're in that predicament, you're kind of at a disadvantage whenever this book is almost geared more towards the nuclear family, but that doesn't mean you don't stick by your guns whenever they're there,
That.
you know.
Yeah, I think the kids have said very blatantly, we are the and to hear this, it's kind of funny. We are the stricter, household. We have bedtimes, though. I will tell you that we're not always great at that. And I do think there are times that we haven't always been as structured as we need to be, and we have great intentions, but it's it's hard in them streets trying to raise kids. My mom told me the other day she heard on Dr. Phil, which I like me some Dr. Phil. I don't know if he's just making the statistic up, but it made me feel really good that raising 3 kids is the equivalent of having 2 full-time jobs.
Wow.
And I said, well, we have 2 employees at this full-time job. And it's still hard, because you want to give each and every one of them what you can as far as attention. But if you're both working full-time, and then let's say you don't, and it's already hard in them stores too, it's everything is expensive. So being able to provide for them what they all need and want and work and have a home and I mean, we literally stay up till obscene hours in the morning
Yep.
at times just to connect with one another or to record or whatever that is. So I say all that to say that I can understand, the nuclear family is already challenging, and I mean, I feel like we operate very much like a nuclear
Yeah,
family
we kind of
now.
do now, but
But even then, if your child, if you have a blended family and you're 50-50 custody, they might not love you, and say that, they might say, "Oh, well, I would rather be at mom or dad's house." But our kids have all expressed they appreciate the structure. Children, adults, people need structure. That's why we have clocks,
yep. Um, yeah,
and them participating in that structure,
yep,
which is what the last point was there. Letting them have some say so is, I think, critical because that's going to teach them the skills they need when they leave.
yep. Just one last thing on this. I know we kind of got off subject here, which we're great at. Um, is
World.
as much as you can, as long as it's not breaking the budget or anything like the long term, you'll save money doing this, and we need to get better about doing this. Is do your best not to walk into a store if you don't have to. Walmart, Target, anything like that. Try to do curbside as much as possible because you'll spend a lot less money. And
You're
that,
not wrong about
that's
that.
where you and I get in a lot of trouble. We'll go in and we'll
Something shiny.
impulse buy. And so I think if we got better about that, yeah, this sometimes is our, way to get out of the house, things like that. But we can go on the bike trip. We can go and do something else rather than going into me guilty of going in Walmart for, getting out of the house or whatever. So it's like,
Yeah, I hate that place.
I haven't used it for some months, so it's pretty rough today.
Well,
Um, but yeah, try to do that more often than not. We do Costco just because it makes sense for our larger family to, get things brought to the house.
We started doing Instacart because of that. I also think though, I kind of have a dual mindset, right? So you need social interaction.
Mhm.
Like you're essentially doing online gaming of shopping. Like you're avoiding the crowds. You're, having somebody bring it to you. There is a extra cost added to that. Doesn't matter how you look at it,
Depends on if you go to curbside or
right?
not.
Well, with exception, right? And I do think that there are some price differences in store versus online. Sometimes it's actually better online. But I feel like not being able to operate, like I know that probably statistically, I'm not even going to use our family in general, 50% or more of the kids do not know how to go into a store and interact with an employee.
Sure.
They get anxiety over it. They get, just having a regular social interaction where someone says hello and they're like, merp. I don't know what merp was, but made me feel right.
So that's what I'm saying is like instead of wasting your time in the store as much as possible, there's going to be times where you have to go to Marshalls because you need that shirt for the big event that day or whatever. I'm not saying never go into a store.
Right.
I'm saying for your week to week situations, buy it online. Go get it curbside. Be done with it. Then you can spend that 30 minutes, an hour, 2 hours of shopping time doing something outside, on the riverfront, like we live near a river, so going down the riverfront or the park or, whatever the thing is, and then you can get your interactions there where,
Maybe.
hey, how's it going? We live in the South, so a lot of people still say, hey, good morning.
How's your mama and your daddy
Yeah.
doing?
So,
I've never had anybody ask me that in the wild, by the way.
never or within the last 5 to 10 years, because I've noticed that in the last 5 to 10 years,
Probably that.
way less people.
I'm lying. I'm blatantly lying. I have definitely had people ask how my parents were, but I was just thinking about being in the wild and you saying that you could go get social interaction that way. And unless Unless I engage people or it's someone I already know, very rarely do I get social interaction out and about. Like I will tell somebody, "Oh, I love your shirt," or "I love your shoes." Um, I think that's different than forced interaction.
Yeah.
Now, and I don't. The other part of the mindset that I had was I do agree. Like, how do you band with your budget and do better to make sure that you can provide better? But that's a whole nother series we
And,
can go on.
and plus, here's the other thing. So you get out in the wild, right? And this is all part for us adults, as well, on how to get off our phone, get off of social media, and go
Hmm.
out and interact with the world and the people around us, but also entwining it together with the social media aspect. So let's say kayaking. You and I both want to go kayaking. Don't know why we haven't. $400 investment. Is it for
Or
fun?
you could just go rent
Well,
one for the day.
sure, but I'm saying like if we wanted to do it long term, $400 investment for two kayaks, for us to go and go on the river during the summertime. We do that, then we get on to social media, start posting pictures of us on there, and then we find a group of local kayakers and then join them, and now we have a whole friend group.
Right. I think immediate immediately. I'm not trying to whatever. I was just thinking about why we haven't bought a used kayak because you're so specific about what you want.
At the time, I was wanting a fishing kayak.
Right. 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 Um, I got myself twice. But I think everybody has just become so used to publicizing their life. I have taken outside of do out You gotta I need a mic over here or something. Outside
Hands
of the lapel mics, that's what we need to do. Outside of the channel, I really have not, with the exception today, I don't know what happened today, but I got on a whole social media kick. But I was just so emotionally and mentally drained over the last 4 weeks, since Thanksgiving, right? That I have not done that.
Yep.
And it has been amazing. And I have like thought about things I've never really sat down and thought about. I've been, figuring out who I am. again, there are exceptions that I did get on some social media sites, but it had everything to do with who I was. It's something that interested me. And I think that's a good challenge. I think that going back to the point that we were going to make, and then we'll get into chapter 2 next week or next episode, rather. Um,
Yeah, put that
just
next week.
participating with your teens or yourself and just figuring out whether your addiction is video games, whether the addiction is corn, whether it's rack, whether it's reth, or whether it's food, who knows. But it's much better to have the understanding of why and partner with the people that you're around, and just balance is so important.
Mhm.
And you can't, maybe you're not going to conquer it all at once, but just having balance.
Yep.
So that was it.
Yep.
I tried to bring it back home. I don't know if I did a good job.
That's all right.
I tried.
So since we're at the end of the episode, let's talk about some upcoming things that we want to do in 2025, Lara,
Okay.
and beyond even.
Mhm. I'll let you take that because who knows?
Were you just doing that so you could cross your legs? Like get the camera on me so you could cross your legs?
Uh,
Let's
no, maybe
try.
subconsciously.
We're trying some new camera angles, so we don't know if
I've got a
uh,
skirt on,
if we have
so
skirts or not. But so we have a few things that we're wanting to do. Me personally, I'm wanting to uh, start a channel. Well, it's already up. I just don't have any content on it yet. For me personally, have two channels coming up. They're going to be very slow, low and slow kind of content. Um,
just the way I like it.
One is going to be my gaming channel. I still enjoy playing video games. Again, I don't I don't want to play games without recording. I would rather go live, but our internet and with everybody on it, it's too slow for me to do it. I would get frustrated. So recording it is the way I'm going to do it, and then putting it out just as I play video games. They'll be edited pretty good, all this different stuff. But you'll see those on there. I will leave as I create these channels. I'll leave the link tree down below, and you'll see them on there. Um, then the other thing that I'm wanting to do personally is create a channel called The Wandering Bjorn or Bjorn the Wanderer. I think that's what I'm going with. But Bjorn the Wanderer, which is
If you
where
like one better, drop a comment below which
yeah,
one you like. You could take a poll.
where I will be going out into nature with a lav mic and my phone, camera, whatever, and I'm just going to be talking about spirituality. I'm going to talk about all kind of different things. Um, you know, what I'm interested in. What are you smiling over there about?
Nothing. Go ahead.
Um, but yeah, so that one is going to take a lot of research for me to do. So don't expect those out how we do this one, where it's like for the most part twice a week. That will be like once a week to once a month kind of content because again, it's going to take a lot of research for me to get get information compiled into what I want. And
Chat GPT got you.
I know, but personal stuff I want to add in there. Um, so that's gonna take a while, and then making sure it's a beautiful day outside or night or whatever. Um, you
You
know,
should go out on a shitty day. Why not?
okay,
Yeah, just
yeah, maybe I will do that. But
not the lighting.
yeah, but then, there's a few things there that have to do with that. But so that's in the works as well. And then Lara and I will be starting. We'll probably start talking about it a little bit here on this channel. We may have talked about it a little bit. We call it our dynamic.
Mhm.
We are. If you made it this far, you deserve to know this information. Okay, we are in a power exchange dynamic where essentially I'm the papa and she's the obedient one. I don't know how to say it, but anyway,
Oh, sorry. That's the
so
whole ring.
So we'll talk about that more after we get done with this book. And then in tandem with that, we're going to be starting a toy review channel. This is not for children, toy review channel, but we're going to start a toy review channel. Again, this
We're
will
not
be
talking about Beyblades or
we're talking about the Christmas the Christmas tree ornaments that you see at Target with wide flared bases. Um,
now
so
that's out there. So here
yeah.
we are.
So Again, all of this stuff will be on Linktree.
I don't know. You know what? I don't know why I'm like whatever about it. I like education and I Google things. And if
And
you
that's
don't,
awesome.
yeah, and if you don't, if you're a grown up, which you should be, this should be 18 and older, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, not that I don't want, teens or kids or whatever to be able to find stuff that's important, but I wish you could like benchmark and be like, all right, cut you off here.
Yeah.
So,
That's kind of
anyway,
what Patreon's for too. But
but I have I look forward to talking about that because it's not, I think toy review is probably I mean, it would fall under that, but just an educational channel. There are a lot of things that I think are super important for people to understand, or they're looking out there for, I don't know. Let's say today I found out there was such a thing as a peanut butter cake. I made the same face. And I want to go look up peanut butter cake. And I'm very interested in that. And there's, some stuff that's like peanut butter cake, but like big brand cake makers do it, right?
kind of like
Okay.
me.
All right, never mind. Just cut all that. Don't worry about that.
Um, no, you know, I'll,
Just cut all that.
it's okay. I will summarize what you're trying to say. If you grew up in the, I don't know when she started, but if you grew up in the 90s all the way up to probably the early to mid 2000s, you have heard of Sue. Sue was a sex ed teacher essentially online, but she wasn't afraid to show toys and
MTV, late night.
do toy reviews on her, TV channel. And I learned a lot from her growing up. I mean, I was probably 11 or 12 whenever I discovered her. And my mom would be out. I was always so scared because my mom was kind of like funny about that kind of stuff. And really, I didn't get much of a sexual education from her. And so I got all my sex ed from Sue.
Hmm.
And it was this old lady that just told you how to use protection, told you how to,
She was the Julia Childs of toys for
yes.
adults.
And I I mean, I greatly appreciated that. And I think that's what you're trying to get across here. It's like
It wasn't, but I'm going to go with that.
have a little bit of education, have a little bit of humor, and just
I
do
want
reviews.
I want it to come from not a commercial
Yeah,
standpoint. That's what I'm trying to say. I will go back to that cake one because I feel like even though you might not have followed me, I don't want can we get in trouble for saying like brands?
I don't think
No, Duck
so.
and Heinz. I'm doing it. Or Betty Crocker or whatever. They have the cake box mix. And like, okay, you could tell me how to make a cake, but that doesn't help me who's making it from scratch that has a wonky oven in here. I'm not leading this off well, but whatever. Um, but yeah, so I would like to help bring education to people on a lot of things, and reviews might be how we word it, but I
Yeah,
think it'd be a lot more.
yeah, I agree with that.
And
So,
also did not know that we were gonna talk about this, so
yeah,
here we
I
are.
like to surprise you.
Oh, you killed that.
So, um,
And speaking of surprises, your ears.
oh,
Love those.
here's
Yeah.
some, but that's because we're working toward a bigger goal here. I'm slowly stretching them out.
Yeah.
So, but yeah. So those are the three main things. If you want essentially, if you want relationship and family relationship, come here. If you want spirituality, go to the Bjorn the Wanderer. If you want entertainment, like video game entertainment, go
Just
to
follow
the
along.
gaming channel. And then if you want, toy reviews, go to, I don't know what we're calling it yet, but let's call it Odwin's
Just stay
Tasty
tuned.
Toy Review.
Hashtag staying alive in 25. That's my motto
All right, everybody. We'll see you in the next one. Stay a little hot out there.
because we are.
Good job.
Thank you.